What up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Funboxing with Will. I'm your host, Will, with H2O Co Film and Photo, and today we're going to be reviewing a product that I've been promising I would do a review on for almost a month now. I apologize for the procrastination here, but we're going to be doing a review on the Zhiyun Weebill Lab. Now, I think I pronounced that correctly, Z-H-I-Y-U-N, Zhiyun. I could be butchering it. I apologize if I am. But yeah, so I've been talking about doing a review on it for a while, and I figured I might as well finally get around to it, especially with this whole quarantine thing that we've been doing. I haven't had much else to do, so I figured I'd go ahead and get into that today. Now, if you find any of this information at all useful, or you like any of the information and like these kind of tech review videos, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. And hit the notification bell. We will be producing, or I will be producing, more videos, overviews, tech reviews, mostly on filmmaking equipment, but really anything techy that I go ahead and pick up here and there, which I do have a habit of spending quite a bit of money on tech, so I am a nerd in that aspect, and if you find any of this information, like I said, valuable, there's plenty more to come. So, and I wanted to reach out and say thank you to my 2 new subscribers that I got this week. I think I'm only up to like 16 subscribers on my channel, but you know what, who cares? I do this stuff because I love it, and I love being able to provide information for you guys out there, so you know what you're getting into when you go ahead and pull those hard-earned dollars out of your wallet that you've worked so hard for. So, jumping into today's review, first we'll go ahead and start with the case. It is a styrofoam hard case, as you can see. It has some locking mechanisms here on the side. Now, DJI, they have hard cases that are more like a Pelican case. It's like a hard polymer plastic that they use, and I prefer those. I've only had this for about a month and a half, and I've already noticed that the case, just from opening and closing it over time, has started to kind of tear in the back right there, and here pretty soon I'm going to have to duct tape this monkey to keep it from falling apart. But it does seem to do its job. It does protect the gimbal pretty well. The gimbal itself is super ultra lightweight and super compact, super small. It's one of the features that I love about the gimbal, and I'm going to go ahead and pull it up right now. So this is the gimbal. This is what comes in the package. You get in the package with the accessories, you get the charger, of course, which is right here. It runs off of, I forget the name of the batteries, I do apologize. They're the standard batteries that you see in vape mod and most gimbals nowadays. These are Zhiyun batteries. Now, I was told in the instructions, when I was going through the instructions and reading this, watching the CD, that they do not recommend third-party batteries. I'm assuming that's a cash grab. It's just a way for them to make sure you don't go out and just buy a cheaper battery and you spend the $60, $70 on their batteries. But I'm not sure, so I don't want to suggest that you do buy a third-party battery and go out and ruin your gimbal. So this is just a disclaimer. I personally wouldn't have an issue with it. I would do it myself if I wanted some extra batteries, but I wouldn't suggest it just based off of the instructions. So take that with a grain of salt, as you will. Now, as far as battery life is concerned, the battery life on this thing is amazing. I've gotten 2 full days use out of one charge, which was, I'd say, 6 hours the first day and around 7 or 8 the next day. Now, keep in mind, I didn't have it constantly running the entire time. I was turning it off in between takes and scenes. But I would say I got maybe a full 10 hours use out of it before it died, you know, altogether. So I think that's an amazing battery life for a gimbal. Now, as I said before, it is a smaller profiled gimbal. It is probably only about 8 to 10 inches tall without the extender handle. Now, it comes with a tripod handle that can be screwed on to the bottom here, and you can hold it generally like most gimbals are held. You know, it's got a joystick, a directional pad, you've got your power button on the side, a toggle switch for your lock mode or pan follow mode, and then you've also got your go button here. Now, I'll explain these here in a moment. You also got a focus here, because they do sell a package for a little bit more than this one costs. This one, I believe, was $3.99. but the highest package, or the higher up next level tier package, comes with a motorized follow focus, which you can buy separately if you'd like. And this spin dial here works the follow focus. So instead of having to mess with any of the lenses, you just spin this little dial here and it goes ahead and controls your focus, pulls focus for you. Now the handle, it comes with one. Personally, I didn't think it was enough, so I went and bought a second handle. You can get the Zhiyun handle for about $20 online, $25, or you could buy a third-party one that's only about $10, and I actually prefer the third-party one, and I'll tell you why in just a second. But, so, you can take the handle, and if you only have the one that comes with the package, you unscrew it from the bottom here, and you can screw it into this top bracket right here. I like personally running it with two handles, just because I find it easier to use. Why am I out of focus all of a sudden? There, come on. There we go. That was very weird. Sorry about that, guys. So, I got out of focus there for some reason. I think maybe I put my hand too close to the camera. But anyways, so going on with what I was saying, I prefer to run it with dual handles, just because I feel like it gives me more stability and more control of the gimbal. But also, you can turn it this way and use it in underslung mode, and it's very, very comfortable. It's a very comfortable hold. You can get very low to the ground. I mean, centimeters off the ground, so that you're getting those awesome low shots for B-roll or whatever else you're trying to pull off there. Another feature I like about the gimbal itself is it has locking mechanisms on each access arm, which are incredible. It makes it so that it doesn't really wiggle around when you're carrying it around when you're traveling. Say you want to hop out of the car, you throw this in your backpack, you don't have to worry about the arms flailing everywhere. You know it's pretty much locked down tight. And you can control each access arm lock individually, so as you're balancing your camera, you can actually lock two of the arms in place, balance the one access. Once that's balanced, unlock the other arm, balance that axis. Once that's balanced, unlock your last axis and make sure that that's balanced. So that's a very useful feature that I've come to enjoy quite a bit. Also, in the packaging here, it comes with an extender plate that you get. I'm assuming if your camera is sitting too low, it's just like an extension. It heightens the camera off of the gimbal, I'd say a good ½ an inch maybe, to get more clearance from the motors, I'm assuming is the reason that that's in there. And then one of my favorite parts of the gimbal is that it comes with this two-piece Manfrotto compatible quick release plate. And I'll tell you why I like the two-piece. The reason I like the two-piece plate is because, unlike most gimbals, where every time you have to take the camera off of the gimbal for whatever reason, whether it's to change the battery, or you filled up your SD card, or if you just want to get a real quick still of something going on and then throw your camera back on the gimbal and go back to taking video. With the dual release plate, once you've got your camera balanced and then you just take off the top layer plate, you can take your camera off very quickly, and then when you go and put your camera back on, you don't have to rebalance it, because the first base plate, the initial base plate, is still right where it was. So you're good to go. You just take it, slap it back on, and you can get back to filming, which is something I found to be a huge time saver. It's very, very convenient. I like that a lot. So way to go, Zhiyun, for doing that. It's one of my favorite features of the gimbal. Now, some of the modes that the gimbal has is it has POV. I'm going to get into some of these buttons now. So, it has obviously a joystick, an LCD panel, and it has a joystick. Well, the joystick pretty much just controls your pan, follow, tilt, all that stuff. If you just want to hold it still, you can just control it with the joystick instead of turning your hand to get your pans, follows, and such. It also has a POV button. Now the POV button is, if you double click it, it turns it into, I guess, selfie mode. And then if you click it a single time, it will put it into a free float mode. So not only is it panning left, right, up, down, but it'll follow your hand movements pretty much any direction. So instead of just going left, right, up, down, it can do wonky, like twisted movements, you know, which is pretty neat. Also, if you triple press the trigger, oh, I apologize, it has a trigger on the front. So as I said earlier, lock and pan follow modes. So when you're in lock mode, the camera stays facing forward no matter what. You turn it left, right, up, down, it'll stay facing forward unless you hold the trigger. So it's in lock mode, you pull down this trigger up front and then you can move it and it'll pan and follow, just like it was as if it were in pan and follow mode. Also, if you triple tap the trigger, it'll throw it into vortex mode, which means when I push it down into the underslung mode and then turn the joystick, it'll just spin in a circle. Kind of like the Inception mode on my Moza gimbal. It's actually identical to the Inception mode. And I feel like it's more of a gimmick, but it does get some pretty cool shots, and there are some situations I could see using it in, maybe a music video, something of that nature. So that's pretty neat. Another feature that it has is a go button. Now the go button, once held down, it puts it into a fast pan, whip pan mode. It's more used for things like sports. If you're trying to track somebody moving really fast, a soccer or football player running down the field, it'll help you with that. And secondly, it's also very good for fight scenes. Now, if you're filming a movie that has a fight scene in it, a lot of times when you're watching films, they'll go from steady shots, very steady shots, to from that to a tripod shot to, you know, static shots. But then if there's some action going on, like a real rapid fight scene or something like that, you get a lot of handheld a lot of times. Directors and cinematographers will choose to do the handheld because the jitteriness and the shakiness of the camera kind of puts you more into the situation, especially with something that's adrenaline filled and trying to get your heart going. You're trying to get sucked into the story, and that shaky jitteriness of a handheld motion is just more adept to the fight scene, I would believe, I would think. So with that go pan, it's really fast, super fast, and you can get those whip pans and you can just boom, put the camera right where you need it. And so that's a very nice feature. If you go ahead and you triple tap that trigger, it'll put it into selfie mode. So it'll spin the thing around, and let's say you're using a camera with a flip screen or articulating screen, you'll actually be able to see yourself, and you can do vlogs, something of this nature, you know, a YouTube video or something like that, which I have found to be very useful as well. It's just, I would say it's an all-around awesome tool, and it's gotten some very cinematic footage for me through the films that I've been making recently, and just some of the other projects I've worked on recently. It's done wonders for me. It's I love it. It's a really awesome tool. Now, there's a couple other things I wanted to talk about that were kind of negatives about the gimbal, and I'm not by any means a big enough channel to be sponsored by anyone, or, you know, I'm not getting paid for my opinions here, so I'm just going to tell you what I really think about it. And it's an amazing gimbal. There are a couple things though. 3 off the top of my head I can think of right now. One, now that third-party handle I was talking about a moment ago, that I said I almost would prefer the $10 third-party handle as opposed to the duplicate handle, I guess, from the one they give you, is that depending on the camera you have, this bar needs to slide back and forward sometimes to make your camera fit. Well, if this bar gets slid back too far, this motor is right here. Now, to put your hand in here, you can see there's very little clearance here between my hand and that motor. If you have fat fingers, or if you're wearing gloves because it's cold outside, sometimes your hand will hit that and it'll prevent the camera from going the way you want it to, which is kind of a pain in the butt. With the third-party handles that I've seen on Amazon, though, they screw into the same location, but they kind of extend a little bit out, and it actually pushes the handle to about where my hand is now. So it gives you a good extra inch, or almost even 2 inches for this handle here. So it gives you more clearance, so you don't ever have that problem of bumping your hand into the motor, which is something that I think I might invest in really quick here pretty soon. Another good investment that's a third party, or you can just go ahead with the Zhiyun brand name, is the quick release adapter, which I would suggest getting. I have one right here, and it's really easy. Just screws onto the edge of your handle, and then it's got a little slide release, and you literally just slide it on, click it in place, and it's back on. You pull it, you take it off. It's a lot less clumsy than sitting there and screwing it on, unscrewing it, screwing it on the bottom, unscrewing it. It just makes workflow a lot easier, just being able to snap, pull it right off. Another downside to the gimbal is that the bolts here, the screws that tighten and loosen the balance plates and the quick release plates, from what I've heard, they have a tendency to break very easily. And I noticed in the packaging, I was equipped with a little bag that had extra bolts in it. I'm assuming that's to do with the fact that the company knows this is an issue, and that it's a common issue. And not only that, but I've noticed on the gimbal Weebill Lab 3S that they just came out with, it's the brand new one. This one came out in 2019. They just released its big sister, or its child, you know, its predecessor, and its predecessor has a different locking mechanism. They changed the situation with the locks altogether and gave them thumb screw locks. So those ones are a lot more dependable, and I'm assuming they did that because of how many complaints they had about that part on this gimbal breaking. So I would suggest just baby them as much as you can. That's what I do. Just keep an eye on them and make sure that you don't over tighten them or unscrew them all the way, and I would think you wouldn't have much of a problem. I haven't personally had a problem with mine breaking on me yet, and I've been using it quite a bit, so as long as you take good care of your equipment, you shouldn't have an issue, I don't think. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about with it as far as a negative goes is the app. So there is an app that comes with it called, I believe it's Zhiyun Play, and it's very, very useful if you can figure out how to use it. But it is not very well made as far as user interface is concerned. It's quite confusing, and there are a lot of features, I'll be honest, that I haven't figured out how to use yet. There's a wireless control feed that uses the motion sensors, I'm assuming, in the phone. So when you take your phone and you turn it certain ways, the gimbal's supposed to respond and mirror your motions with your phone. I can't figure out how to get that to work. And as far as I'm aware of, as of right now, they still haven't released the firmware update yet. They're supposed to be releasing a firmware update. On their website, it shows all of the cameras that they support with the wireless functions as far as the app is concerned, and Canon unfortunately is not on that list, which boggles me. It boggles my brain because it's one of the top 3 camera brand names on the planet. So if you're gonna make a gimbal for a camera, you would think you'd include functionality for one of the main popular cameras on the planet, but they didn't do it. So I've heard that there was a firmware update you can download that adds the Canon software to the gimbal's app processors, and you can fix that problem, but I just haven't come across it personally, and for all I know, it was just somebody talking out their ass. So I don't know. I haven't really needed it. Pretty much from what I'm aware, the only thing that the app's used for, now there are some very useful things you can do in the app. You can adjust the speed of the motors, the strength of the motors, how much power it puts towards the motors for heavier, lighter loads. You can do a wireless connectivity kind of a deal, which pretty much, if you buy the accessory that allows you can buy an accessory, it'll allow you to hook your phone up to this mount right here off the side and use it as a field monitor essentially. But because of the latency issues and all of that, I just wouldn't prefer using it. I wouldn't suggest to use it. And besides, even if your Canon camera doesn't work with the app, Canon has its own Canon Connect app that does the same thing essentially, and I don't use that when I'm filming just because of the latency in that as well. So I would just get a regular field monitor, hook it up with the cables, and you'll get 0 latency. That's what I do. I don't get any lag time with it. So essentially that's the review. Like I said, I've used it for about a month and a half now, and it's so far my favorite gimbal. I love it. I'm going to continue using it, and so anybody out there who has the $3.99 that they can go ahead and spend, I would definitely suggest picking this up. At that price point, it's the best gimbal on the market, I believe. Now, if you want to go into a higher price point, they did just release a new gimbal called the Zhiyun S Lab. Lab S is what it's called, and it is amazing. Now it's $899, but the payload capacity is improved. I think it can hold up to 10 pounds or 12 pounds. The motors are way bigger. They did keep they relatively kept the main design. They made some few improvements. The new one has an external handle you can plug in here that comes out at more of an angle, and the locks are all different. The new handle has an LCD screen on it itself. That way you don't have to look down while you're filming, trying to look down to see what your settings are set at and all of that. So there are some good improvements there. Now, are they worth $400 extra on those improvements? That's yet to be seen, but I will definitely check it out, and if I get one in my hands, I will go ahead and do a review on that one as well. But yeah, so if you have any comments or questions, go ahead and hit me up with the comments in the section, and I always answer any comments. As I said, I have a very small channel, so I get to see all the comments, and I do read them and go over them. And other than that, that was the review today. So I hope you guys found it useful, and go ahead and get out there and shoot some film, take some photos, and stay creative, my friends. Have a great night.